Hello, welcome again to Fairtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
And I'm Steve Hayes.
And we are the Fairtax
FAIRtax
Guys.
Guys.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and
Great to be back with you, gentlemen.
great to have you here on the Fairtax Power Radio. It's always fun to talk to you. And one question I want to ask you right off the bat. Last time we were on, we were talking about your testimony before Congress and the House Ways and Means Subcommittee on Taxation. You indicated that there were a couple of Democrat representatives who were interested in at least talking to you about
Right.
some of their concerns. Has there been any progress on that front?
We're still working to get the meeting set up. They're not running to meet because of all the excitement going on in DC.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty much put it on the side table. But neither one has said they don't want to meet. They just said that we need to do it later because of the schedule.
Okay, I just thought that was an incredibly positive development
I
because
think so too.
there has been just a brick wall of partisan opposition to the fair tax on that side of the aisle, and it's great that some people are at least willing to talk to you. And if they will talk to you with an open mind, I'm pretty sure you can convince them that our plan is better than theirs.
Well, I think that's highly likely. We still have to get through the Democrat mindset, on regressivity, but I think we can handle that. The big
All
button
right.
for most of these people that I think could be approached is actually funding of Social Security and Medicare. How the fair tax funds it, whereas the present system, because of tax evasion, is not funding it to the point where it's going to go broke in 6 years. Not broke,
Yeah.
but become unable to pay full benefits.
Yeah.
And that
So
and ironically, these guys who are willing to talk are all in that age where they're probably collecting Social Security. But it's real to them. And it's like not only because of them, perhaps, but also just that they believe their constituency is a lot of people that are, that 25% of people that get Social Security that live on Social Security primarily.
mm-hmm.
They don't get other income from investments or other pensions or anything like that. And they think it's a very real problem. And it is a real problem because you're talking about a large number of people that maybe have been able to be somewhat independent. But if you cut Social Security 20%, they're going to become dependent on either relatives or the government more. And that's not a very pleasant thought for people who have retired and have been able to be relatively independent and not a burden on their kids. So,
Indeed. All right. Well, I want to address a different topic with you this time around. I
sure.
know that this time of year is when people at least begin to start thinking about tax season. I know that people who have W-2s should have them by now. A lot of 1099s have gone out. So a lot of the tax documents that people need have shown up in the mail in the past couple of weeks. Of course, a lot of them are no doubt going to be procrastinating until the last minute to put it up here. But I want you to talk more about what you hit on in this last chairman's report that was published just last Friday on the 9th about hidden taxes. People, can look on their W-2 form, they can look on their pay stub, they can look on their tax return and see kind of what they're paying directly. But that is just not everything that people are paying in taxes. And one of the items you mentioned in your chairman's report is one of the reasons that the elites in DC love the income tax so much is because it does a really, really good job of concealing from people just how much government is costing them. And I would
Right.
like you to elaborate on that a bit, if you would, please, sir.
No, I'd be happy to. Well, in my article, and it's just an example I picked. You could pick any industry, but I picked the farmer who is growing wheat and how the farmer is able to stay in business, he has to take all of his costs for growing the wheat, add to it enough money to support his family, and he has to sell his wheat for that amount of money in order to stay in business as a wheat farmer, to make it where he can do it. And one of those direct expenses is that if he has employees, he's got to pay payroll taxes. Well, those are included in his cost of doing business. And he adds that into his cost, just like all of us would have to when pricing a product. We look at all of our costs. And then when the farmer says he wants to take $50,000 for his family, in order to net the $50,000, he essentially has to pay himself $65,000 in order to pay the payroll taxes and pay the income tax in order to get 50. Well, the price of the wheat then is increased by an extra $15,000 in my example when it's sold. So instead of being able to sell the wheat for, say, $550,000, if it was $500,000 of cost and $50,000 to him, he has to sell it for $565,000. And you go, okay, well, that's a 10%, 12% markup. No, it's probably more like 15 because, again, of the other hidden taxes. But when you look at it, it actually is higher because everyone that supplied any implement to the farmer, person who did the seeds, the person who sold him his tractor, the person who maintains his tractor, the person who hauls the wheat off to the silo, all of those people have to make the same calculations as he did. They have to increase their price that they charge the farmer by enough to cover their own income tax, all their costs, but including payroll taxes and income taxes, and net enough to justify being in business, which means more taxes are included. So the compilation of all those taxes that go into the final product, the bread, let's say we buy at the store, is somewhere between 15 and 25% of the price. So if you paid, you never find bread at this price, but for example, $1 for a loaf of bread, the guys on the show can remember when it was a quarter, but anyway, pay $1 now for that loaf of bread. You're probably going to be paying 15 to 25 cents and probably higher because of all the steps the wheat goes through, probably toward the 20, 25 cents in hidden taxes. So when you spend that person on Social Security, and I've had them come up to me after I've given a talk and say, I really think it's better for my kids and grandkids, but I'm not working anymore. I'm only getting Social Security and a few dollars from a bond or something. I don't pay any income tax. So I really don't pay any federal taxes. And then I kind of quickly go through the explanation of the hidden taxes and say, look, unfortunately, you're paying of everything you spend. Let's say you spend $25,000 or $20,000. You're paying additional $3,000 to $4,000 in income taxes that are hidden in what you buy. And surprisingly, most people, when you go a quick example, that makes total sense. I never thought about that. So you've got a situation under the present system where the elites can hide the cost. They can say, Bob Scarborough, the income tax you're paying is on your W-2. You can see it. What are you talking about? But the real cost is hidden because they pass it on through corporations and other vendors. And that's really the whole thing about hidden taxes. The income tax allows them to hide from American people because if the American people realize how much federal taxes, income taxes they're paying, there's going to be a revolt. Nobody's going to tolerate those numbers, and the elites know it. They know they've got to keep this away from us.
Yes. All right, Scarborough, what's your thought here?
Everybody has, they have their likes and dislikes about government. Some people look at the government as a crutch or as a support mechanism. Other people look at it in completely the opposite way. And I think with the democratization of the news media, we have the ability to communicate in ways beyond just the Walter Cronkite 6 o'clock news. We now have social media that's there that is making a lot of what we've talked about today transparent across many different spectra of the government, political or not. The fact that Washington, D.C. likes to hide reality from the citizenry because of whatever their reason is, because they've been gaming the system for so long. We are now able to, the general public is now able to know a little bit more about it, and they hear something and they say, well, I can go research that over here on this particular website. The information that we have out there is the ability to communicate what we just talked about just now. People can go find this, and the more it's proliferated into all of the channels that are available to us technologically, we have the ability to move the needle in a positive direction. And Steve, as you said just a minute ago about the fact that you have a lot of folks that are getting ready to fall into getting Social Security and other support after a certain age, with that coming, the specter of a reduction in that is quite ominous.
Right.
We look at the other side of that. We're turning around to having to say that the government is going to have to take care of us, or our children, to fill in the gap. That's a non-starter for a lot of people. I think that where we are as a group with the FAIRtax is the people in Washington are not going to have an opportunity to continue the shell game that they're playing with our money.
Steve, I think you lost your audio. Are you still there?
No, I cut it back on.
Okay.
I had to answer a question. Basically, though, here's the thing, Bob. It's great that we have the outlets, but you have to provide actual data that is not going to be automatically dismissed, as we know. That's what you and Bob Paxton spend all time trying to be sure that you give data that's actually backed up, not by opinion, but by some facts. And that's what people need, because people are not, and in this week's chairman's report, I talk about a survey the Wall Street Journal did, where only 16% of the American people believe the government's going to do the right thing.
I'm surprised it's that high.
And so you've got a situation where it's there, but 70% of the elites believe government will do the right thing. And so that's why, and elites make up the Biden administration and most of the bureaucratic top level positions in DC. They want to feather their nest, and they don't want people to find out, because they truly believe that they're smarter than the rest of us, and that we just need to do what we're told, because they're going to take care of us. And they're not unhappy about Social Security going broke, or not broke, but being underfunded in 6 years. Why? Because it makes people dependent on them. And they don't like people being independent and that's, I think, the biggest reason they don't like the fair tax, is it transfers power back to the people in terms of how much tax they pay, but it also exposes them for the scam they've been running on hiding the taxes we pay.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I first read the FAIRtax book, Forts and Lender's book, the white one to start with, when I read the chapter on embedded taxes, a light bulb went off at that point. I just instinctively knew that when I buy a product, that I am paying in the final price that I'm paying, that I am covering the cost of the labor and materials that went in to buying that. But a lot of people just don't realize that whether you're buying a loaf of bread, whether you're buying a new car, whether you're buying a ride on Delta Airlines, it really doesn't matter what you're buying, what product or service you're buying. You are paying somebody else's taxes that have been rolled into the price of that, and you don't see it. And of course, one of the primary talking points that people who have a vested interest in keeping the income tax system will raise against the fair tax. 23%, and some people will say 30% sales tax. That's going to raise the price of everything you buy, including your groceries and medicine and clothes for the kids. It's going to make your life 30% more expensive. And that is just garbage. And people don't understand that taxes are just like labor and materials. They're a cost of doing business. When they go up, the prices go up. When those things fall out of the price, as the fair tax will take them out, the competitive pressures in the free market economy are going to force prices down. So we're not going to be paying anywhere near 20 to 30% more under the fair tax.
And the prebate,
elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, and the prebate makes it even more that, because you're looking at a family of four paying no federal income, no federal taxes, plus getting the benefit of reduced prices on goods because of the prebate.
Bring home your whole paycheck and get a tax refund every month.
Yeah. And basically, you've got a situation where they're now in charge of what tax they pay, because maybe they've got to spend every dime of the $40,000 to live. But they can, if they buy used goods, they don't pay the fair tax. It's only on new retail goods that they pay the fair tax. So therefore, they can reduce further the amount of fair tax they would pay, and they get to keep the prebate. That extra money that came in, a portion of it goes to buy more goods that are going to be at a reduced price. Because again, that example of the wheat farmer, if there were no federal income payroll taxes, that farmer could sell the wheat for less and still be sufficient. Probably for $500,000 or maybe $450,000 to the silo, who's then in turn sell it to a processor to make the bread. So all of that's going to happen, as you said, Bob, through competition. They're going to drive the price down. Will the farmer like to sell it for $600,000? Of course. But they're going to have a lot of people next to him are saying, well, I'll sell mine, and they'll force him to reduce the price. That's what's going to happen. Walmart would love to keep the prices up, but they know if they do, that all these other competitors are going to reduce the price. So they operate on a 0.5% markup of their cost. So it's going to come down. But see, the other myth that is perpetrated by these guys in DC, the elites, is that right now, for all the people watching your program and listening to it who are still employed, they're paying a tax right now. It's like a sales tax. And you go, oh, no, they're not. We don't have a federal sales tax. Well, think about it a minute. In order to buy that hypothetical dollar, loaf of bread today, not only does it have taxes in it, which increase the price that it should have sold for from 80 cents to $1, but in order to do that, where do they get the money to buy it? They have to get it out of their take-home pay.
After they've paid their taxes, yes.
And their take-home pay has been reduced by 20, 30, 40, 50% because of taxes. In other words, let's just take an average. They have to make $1.25 to net that dollar. Okay. So when they buy that product, how is that not a 25-cent sales tax on the product?
You got to earn $1.25 to pay what should be an 80-cent price for the loaf of bread. And
That's
so,
right.
yeah, that difference is what the income tax system imposes on us.
Right.
And that's what goes away with the fair tax.
That's right. And so basically what you have for almost everybody working is you have a raise because prices are going to come down through competition some. Not every price. That expensive surgeon is probably not going to cut his price much.
No.
But everything else that we buy is going to come down. And you're going to have your whole paycheck, and you're going to have the prebate cushioning the first amount of income and the purchases you make. So you've got a net effect of everybody instantly being better off without the elites being able to say, Scarborough and Paxton and Hayes, you need us because you're going to need a crutch and we'll help you. We can then say, wait a minute, we don't need a crutch. We've got more money today than we had yesterday before the fair tax went in. We can buy more. Our family does better. And that really is a huge threat to DC. Huge threat, because they don't want us not to need them.
The scariest words in the language. I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. I mean,
absolutely.
Was that a Ronald Reagan quote? I think it was.
It was. He was the one that made it famous. I'm not sure he was the originator, but he was the one that made it famous. And I think it's even more true today, because you're talking about these people running at a deficit, which is going to absolutely entangle my grandchildren going forward and yours. It's going to create a problem that only the elites think they can solve. And that's just not something we should tolerate. And we have a way through the fair tax of grabbing back power from these people and making all of our lives more sustainable at our choice, not that we have to be dependent. And that's why I think people should be waking up and demanding it, because it's not going to happen in DC. I mean, we can go up there as many times as we want. We can meet as many of these people as we want. But the only way it's going to happen is if all of us make it clear to our representatives that if they're going to continue with this goofy system of taxation, the income payroll tax, we're going to mobilize and ensure they don't get reelected. Because the only thing they really care about is keeping their power and being reelected.
Supporting the fair tax supporting the fair tax has to become a winning issue at the ballot box before we're going to get it. Real quickly here before we go, have you heard any more about when we might get a vote in the House of Representatives?
No, they're still debating it. Like I said, right now, you run into a wall. Like I know that Buddy Carter checked recently and was told, we'll get back to you. Because, they've got all of this stuff going on with the immigration bill, with the continuing resolution, the budget, and the new tax bill. And so they're just totally absorbed in all of those things. And since it would have to go through Jason Smith and the Ways and Means Committee, he's not going to pay any attention to anything until he gets some form of his tax bill through. And so my guess is it's going to be closer to the election.
Well, that makes it even better. So then we can tell who's in favor of giving us tax reform, not just tax relief, true tax reform, and which ones want to keep their hands in our back pockets.
And make us dependent on them, because that's really the thing. You can hear your member of Congress give you all these things about, we're working to do this. No, you're working to keep us dependent on the elites. And if that's how you feel, we're not going to support you. We want to be Americans, as we always have been in the past, able to support ourselves and not need the government for support, for help and other things, for defense, to help build infrastructure, yes, but not economic support. We should be able to do that ourselves, and we can with the right tax system, which is going to boom the economy and make all of us much more solvent and able to provide what we need to ourselves and our families.
All right. Got about 2.5 minutes left, Bob. Anything else on your mind?
Well, I've been over at the debt clock, the U.S. national debt, looking at that thing spinning and spinning up to $34 trillion plus, 3 more sections on just the commas to the right continue on, and it continues to grow, and the debts per person is almost insurmountable when you think about it. And with how many people in the country? 300 and some odd million.
320 some million.
Yeah, and per taxpayer, that debt is $264,000. Wow. And you get to look at those numbers and you go, my God, this cannot be sustainable at any level. And when does this house of cards collapse? At what point does it collapse, and who's going to be caught underneath it? And who's going to be able to step aside at the last minute? And where is the point of no return, I guess, is my question when it comes to the operation. I guess since the government can continue to print money, the debt doesn't mean anything. And I hear a lot of people that have that same thought. So when you consider the possibilities under the fair tax, HR 25, a tax on consumption, replacing the income tax, you think, well, this would be a way to start. Now, we're not in the business of telling Washington how to spend the money. All we're doing is saying, let's move it to a tax on consumption as opposed to a tax on income, and then get people in office. And like Bob Paxton said a minute ago, the people that we elect are the ones that are that will go in and make those changes, and the system be damned, basically.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, I certainly appreciate you taking time to talk to us. I know you've got another call to go to here in a few minutes. So, again, we certainly appreciate your expertise and your commentary on FAIRtax Power Radio, and we will have you back again sometime soon.
I look forward to it. It's always a pleasure, and I really appreciate what the two of you do every week.
Thank you, Steve.
All righty. Well, that is going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio for another time around. Thank you again so much for watching, listening, and sharing the videos. Until we meet again, I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
And I'm Steve Hayes.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Demand it.
So tell me how it works.
It's probably changed since the last time I saw it, but the short answer would be, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Okay. Imagine bringing home everything you make. You don't get taxed for saving or accumulating wealth, and your boss doesn't get taxed more even if he pays you more.
Wow, see, that's amazing.
So the end result of all that is the cost of producing products and running a business goes down, so things cost less. And on top of all that, imagine every criminal, non-citizen, and under-the-table worker also paying taxes.
That's amazing.
That's the fair tax.